Thursday, January 14th, and this is the Morning Breach with Scott Davis. Joe Biden has released details of his American Rescue Plan, which is a $1.9 trillion stimulus package, which includes what Biden believes America needs to recover the economy, which has been left devastated by COVID-19. Biden is calling on Congress to launch the most ambitious effort to modernize and secure federal IT and the respective networks. A $9 billion investment to help the U.S. launch major new IT and cybersecurity shared services at CISA and the GSA, while completing modernization projects at federal agencies across the board. $200 million to allow for rapid hiring of hundreds of experts to support the Federal Chief Information Security Officer and U.S. Digital Service. $300 million in no-year funding for technology transformative services in the GSA to drive secure IT projects forward without the need to reimburse from the different agencies. And an additional $690 million for CISA to bolster cybersecurity across federal civilian networks, while supporting the piloting of new shared security and cloud computing services. In total, Biden is calling for a $10.1 billion investment in technology at the federal level. Now, your cybersecurity budget isn't $10 billion. It's probably closer to the thousands or tens of thousands annually. And no matter what your budget is, it's how the money is spent that will determine your ultimate risk score. You can buy every tool out there and be no better off than if you didn't buy anything. Reviewing, testing, and ultimately making the purchase of the different components that make your cybersecurity stack need to be well thought out and needs to be built to overlap each other. You want to ensure you have well-reviewed antivirus and anti-malware. You want to have an enterprise-grade firewall that has network intrusion protection and good logging. You want cloud DNS filter. You want supported and current network infrastructure. That includes your switches, your Wi-Fi access points. And of course the server and desktop inventory running against supported and updated operating systems. On top of those, you want a strong cybersecurity training LMS, simulated email phishing, and maybe even phone call vishing. You want a unified MFA and when possible SSO design to allow your employees to only have to remember one password and one MFA key. The keys there are current and supported hardware from the desktop to the cloud. Running unmanaged switches or not setting up VLANing are really no longer options. Now, that's a laundry list, and I can almost guarantee your network doesn't satisfy each and every one of those items. So you really have a couple choices. One, you can bring in an MSSP or a managed security services provider to bring you many of those tools at sometimes a lower rate than if you were to go and purchase it alone, and they're going to help you manage it. Or the second is to perform a security audit and identify what your strengths and weaknesses are, improve on those weaknesses first, and build a 2, 3, 4, 5-year plan to see yourself getting fully compliant. The big thing is making sure you're making progress year over year. You don't have to spend millions of dollars to have good security posture, but you have to understand the components of your stack and choose the products that make sense for your business and ultimately fit your budget. As the cybersecurity industry adds pressure for businesses and consumers to adopt multi-factor authentication or MFA for their tools and services, it is important to note that there is no service, no feature, or product that can guarantee it won't be compromised. The Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, or CISA again, has put out a new alert warning that cloud services are actively being targeted and in many cases successfully breached by taking advantage of poor cloud cyber hygiene, or better put, misconfigurations. The agency noted a case where a terminal server was breached because the company configured public access of port 80 for remote employees, but they left it open to the whole world, which left the organization open to brute forcing attacks. In addition, it was noted that phishing and pass the cookie attacks are becoming a primary attack vector. So, phishing is the act of sending a socially engineered email or social media post designed to generate the user to react and click a link and give data or credentials to a cyber criminal. Now, I've covered that in depth since I started recording episodes almost a year ago. Pass the cookie, however, is one of several methods that cyber criminals utilize to bypass MFA. Here, a cyber criminal gains access via a phishing email and then gains access to the browser cookies, which store web applications' user authentication information, which is often used to bypass the MFA process. Basically, you use MFA to log into a web application, and once you've validated your credentials and the MFA, the application creates a browser cookie and stores that information for the user session to either keep the user logged in or limit how often the user is prompted for that MFA code. So this process is just one of the methods that can be utilized to bypass or break MFA functionality. So as you are building your cybersecurity plan, you have to remember that no one service will solve everything, and that you should build in overlap and understand why and what services you use. Multi-factor authentication is still one of the best methods available today to protect your end users from their own mistakes. And every IT department and every IT vendor out there should be pushing hard to see everyone implement MFA as quickly as possible. The internet is still a wild west in sorts. You have the big tech players, which have the bigger teams and nicer fields. But anyone can get a computer, a public IP address, and host their own website. So when the social platform Parler was taken offline, it was simply removed from the platforms of other vendors like Amazon Web Services for hosting or Google and Apple for hosting the mobile apps. That connected to the Parler service. So while there is no permanent way to keep the website itself offline, going to that Wild West thought process is, what happens is the big tech effectively limited the reach the platform can have. And let me explain that. So Amazon has one of the most advanced data center farms that spans the globe. So many consumers go to Amazon so they can choose a data center that is close to them for latency reasons and can scale as their business scales, and as they scale, the cost goes up. Amazon made the upfront investment in this structure, and you're simply leasing the space and bandwidth on their computers that you need. The same could be true for Google or Apple in their respective app stores and the platform that they've developed. Now, on Monday, Parler registered its domain and servers to be hosted by Epic, which will allow the service to get back online, as Epic is similar to Amazon Web Services, just smaller. But it will likely come with a slower experience for their customers, and the lack of the mobile apps will limit its ability to truly grow a user base. So it may be the Wild West, but you can't just say you no longer can have a presence online, but you can really limit the total reach and scope. Social Arcs exposed more than 318 million records gleaned from Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. The more than 400 gigs of public and private profile data for roughly 214 million social media users from around the globe resulted from a misconfigured Elasticsearch database. The database server was found to be publicly exposed without password protection or encryption during routine IP address checks. The leaked data was scraped from social media platforms, which some consider unethical and a violation, and it's a violation of the social network's terms of service for each of those. But the scraped data included bios, profile pictures, follower totals, location settings, contact details, email addresses, phone numbers, comments, frequently used hashtags, company names, employment positions, and more. Scraping a website means a person is using a tool, or a cyber criminal is using a tool to extract data from a website. It does it automatically by browsing and saving every available it can access from the site, typically going page by page or site by site or link by link. Regardless the method of collecting the data, it has to be a priority of every business to ensure your data is properly secured and the security components are properly configured. Having security or having a lock on a door and not locking it is no different than having a firewall not configured. Volkswagen and Nissan will join Ford in reducing vehicle production due to the chip shortage. Fiat, Chrysler, and Toyota has also talked about production delays, and GM has stated that it's keeping an eye on the chip-related shortages. The European Medicines Agency, or EMA, announced today that some of the Pfizer-BioNTech COVID-19 vaccine data was stolen from its servers in December has been leaked online. The leaked data includes email screenshots, EMA peer review comments, Microsoft Word documents, PDFs, and Microsoft PowerPoint presentations. EMA found that the data breach was limited to a single IT application, with the attackers primarily targeting the data related to COVID-19 medicines and the associated vaccines. Queensland Police in Australia have accidentally released details of hundreds of firearms owners in an embarrassing privacy and security breach. The goal to warn firearm owners to secure their properties following a spate of thefts of guns, but it included the email addresses of all 500 recipients, not BCC'd, which could now be used to identify everyone and their home addresses. The data management plan may be one of the most critical documents you maintain, as it's built to ensure that the data stored by a company is secure. Understanding the data classification and where your data is stored is critical components that should be understood before you even start building this out. You can use the vendor questionnaire or the technology org chart at themorningbreach.com to help you get started. You will also need to know what laws or regulations apply to you. If you're not sure, then go with or assume a global standard like the GDPR, as it's going to check most of the boxes for you. But if you run credit cards, make sure you look at PCI DSS. If you're in healthcare, make sure you look at HIPAA. And check your state laws as well. Then you're going to identify who is in charge of the data. This is typically your data protection officer. You want to identify the IT manager and even a marketing manager. Each have specific roles and responsibilities that need to be established in regards to data protection and communication of that protection. Next, you dig into the types of data: data storage, data classification, data use, data accuracy, and access requests for the policy itself. It is important for you to know your data, where it is, what data is where, how it's used, or really, at the end of the day, it's like treating data almost like a younger child. It's important to understand all of these components, and it's critical to have this build out so that when you build your incident response plan, you know the answers to the who, what, where, when, and how your data was breached. It is far less expensive and a lot easier to put together this information before you are trying to answer the questions after a cyber attack or the breach has occurred. Finally, outline your approved data storage locations and any other company policies you want to outline as part of the data management plan itself. Here, the more information, the better, but don't go overboard and put stuff in that's constantly changing. The one section I am seeing added into more data management plans is the residency or dual citizenship status of consumer data. This is critical when dealing with a breach because you often have to follow an array of breach notification laws. And it's all based on where the person resides primarily. Or if they're a dual citizen, you may have two different countries that you have to report it to. As a champion of Data Privacy Day through the National Cybersecurity Alliance, we are trying to help you respect privacy by ensuring your cybersecurity policies are up to date and designed for the current state of the world. Make sure you visit themorningbreach.com to watch our series on cybersecurity documentation and download templates, and keep an eye out all month of January as we add more. So that's today's episode of The Morning Breach. If you've learned something new by watching this, please take a second, like and share the video. If you want to see more episodes of The Morning Breach or find useful resources in helping you secure your organization, please visit themorningbreach.com and follow along with us on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Thanks for watching.